Hey crafty friends, this is Chelsea and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to make a layout with this new wet paint collection. This is bright and bold and so much fun. It really makes me think 90s or teenagers or older children. Now I am scrapbooking a toddler at the moment, but this blue kind of drippy pattern caught my eye and it made me think of like out splashing in the puddles in the springtime. So that's the direction I decided to go with it. I'm going to pull in a few other supplies to complement this paper, including these VIP rainbow acrylic shapes. Unfortunately, I'm a little late getting this video out and these are already gone. But I am using this Unicorn Dreams stamp set, which is part of the big Stamptacular Sale this month. So make sure you check out the links below for that. Now I wanted to try a fun technique that I've seen my friend Miss Carrie's Creations here on YouTube do before. So I'm using a not too sticky Cricut mat and vellum, and then I'm just pressing my stencil down over top, and that mat is holding both of those. I'm going to be using texture paste. Usually I like to use the Ranger one, but my jar was empty when I went to go grab it, and I'm using this Prima texture paste instead. It is a little bit more wet feeling than I would have liked. The Ranger one is a little bit more like dry and fluffy, and this one had a little bit more moisture to it, which it didn't work as well as I would have liked, but it's still going to come together in the end. So my goal here is just to put a thin layer kind of evenly over the whole area on the vellum. I don't want to get it super thick and chunky, so I'm just trying to scrape it down so it's sort of even with the stencil. So my goal with this is I wanted a layer behind my photos, but I didn't want it to be really heavy or cover up a lot of that nice blue drippy paper that I'm going to have in the background. So I thought this would be nice and light and airy and actually add some texture, kind of reminiscent of clouds maybe. And I'm very happy with how it turned out. The plan was to leave this on the mat to dry in hopes that it would keep it somewhat flat. But first I'm going to go around with a palette knife and scrape these edges. I thought it would be easier to peel off if I didn't have texture paste dried over where the vellum meets the mat. And it seemed to work out okay. Next, I used intense black ink to stamp and die cut 3 unicorns for my pages. And they're here all ready to go. I'm going to be using my TriBlend markers to color them. The shades I used are Ice Gray Blend, Citrus Blend, Dark Red Blend, Magenta Blend, Green Turquoise Blend, and True Blue Blend. And I did throw in a little bit of Gold Yellow Blend just to get a little bit more orangey in the yellow. And then I grabbed some Copics because I didn't have the perfect orange that I wanted. So YR02, 04, and 07 made up my orange blend. To choose my colors, I actually used these acrylic pieces. So I pulled out one in each shade that I was going to use of the rainbow. And then I just started swatching on this scrap piece here to find the colors that match them the best. And actually, my colors are almost an exact match. So I'm just going to color one of the unicorns here for you on camera. I decided I wanted the bodies to be white, so I'm shading it with the lightest gray. And then I'm going to use my Zero blender to just blend that in a little bit and soften the edge of the gray. But coloring white is so easy because you just need a little bit of gray, or you could even use like a little bit of really light blue to add some shadow. Now, a couple tips for this. One, try not to soak your paper too much with the blender because it can pull the ink outside of the lines if you get too much on there. And I always recommend to do your lightest colors first. So whether that's you're shading in white or you're doing a skin tone, there's the most alcohol content, the highest alcohol content in the lightest colors. So if you did your dark colors first and then you did this right next to it, it would tend to pull those other colors in and make them run because of the high alcohol content in the light colors. Now back to explaining what I'm coloring. The hooves I did in the darkest gray color, and then the horn I did with the citrus marker. I just did it all in yellow. Now I'm moving on to the fun part, and I'm coloring the mane and then the tail, and I decided I wanted to do this all in rainbow colors. So I started off with the dark red, and I like to color with my darkest colors first and then go medium and light. So I put the dark at both ends of that section of hair, and then the medium, blending those towards the center, and then the lightest right in the center. So I'm trying to create that look of a highlight in the center of the mane. I am repeating this process for each of the colors. And a good tip to speed this up, if you were doing multiple ones like I am, I would have them all lined up next to each other and do each section at the same time. So do all the yellow sections on each one, do all the orange sections on each unicorn. That way your marker is already open and they're pretty small areas, so you don't really have to worry about the ink drying too much. You can really hop right along one to the next, but since I was doing this for a video, I just wanted to focus on one unicorn so you could clearly see what I was doing. I do really enjoy using these TriBlend markers. They make coloring super simple because all 3 shades that you need are all contained in one marker, and that just takes some of the guesswork out of it. Now, like I mentioned, Close to My Heart is having a big stamp sale this month. All the standalone stamp sets are 35% off, and select stamp and die sets are up to 50% off. I will leave a link down below for this stamp set and the rest of the sale stamp sets for you. Now I decided that my unicorn needed some sparkle, so I grabbed my clear shimmer brush and I am just filling the whole thing in. I should also mention that off camera I colored in the tail. I just decided since the yellow, green, and blue sections on the mane were the smallest, I would use those shades for the tail. I followed the same process of the dark, medium, light. And for the darkest yellow, I did pull in the gold yellow blend marker and use the light shade of that to add a little bit more shadow, just because the citrus yellow, there's not a lot of difference in the 3 shades. I'm trying really hard here to show you that nice shimmer, but unfortunately, it's just so fine, you cannot pick it up well on camera. I decided I wanted some photo mats, so I am flipping through the mix-in paper pack. This is the May-June one, and I settled on this white background with black polka dots because I didn't want anything too heavy or too bold that would take away from everything else that's going to be going on this page. So I cut them all to 4x6, and then I'm just going to cut down my photos a little bit so that I end up with a nice 1/4-inch mat. That's usually my go-to when I'm trying to conserve paper and do photo mats. I cut 4x6s out of the paper and then just trim the photos, because if I did 4 1/4 by 6 1/4, it would just take too much paper. Now I've got my 2 Versamats lined up here. I love doing this when I'm scrapbooking double pages. It helps me line everything up. And I'm just going to start adding my layers. Now here is how my vellum pieces turned out. I let them dry on the Cricut mats till they were almost dry, and then I needed to move on. So I grabbed a heat tool and finished them off. If they're still cool to the touch, they are not dry yet. So you want that coolness to be gone from them. I'm really happy with how they turned out. They curled up a little bit more than I thought they would, but I think that had more to do with the type of texture paste I was using. So I know for next time that I would prefer lighter, drier paste like the Liquitex or the Ranger one. I wasn't sure how much adhesive would show through this because usually with vellum, you want to avoid using tape runners. So on this side, I tried using glue dots. It worked great. I just hid them behind all the little hexagons of texture paste. And glue dots hold things really well, so I think it did a great job. However, it was really tedious to apply them all. I skipped most of the footage of me applying the glue dots because it took quite a while. So on the next one, I thought, you know what? I got nothing to lose. I'm going to try using my ATG gun because that would just move so much faster. So I went ahead, put it all the way around the outside, put a few strips down the center of it, And you know what? You really can't see it. Maybe here or there you see a little bit, but not really. So I slid the 2 pages together here to help me line this up. And yeah, I would say just use your tape runner because it was way more of a pain to use the glue dots. For whatever reason, this other side was a lot more curled up. So I really took my time and tried to press down all of it. I used a lot of tape runner on the back side, so just went around, pressed it down really well, and then I had a little bit hanging over the edge, so I just trimmed that off with my scissors just to make it nice and even. Now my next step is just to bring in my photos, and I'm not going to stick them on yet. I'm just using them as placeholders so I can figure out where all my embellishments are going to be going and if I need to adhere anything under the photos before I stick them down. I cut these clouds out on my Cricut, and I cut them from pearl paper, which is so much fun. It has this really nice pearly shimmer to it. I thought since, hey, we're going unicorns and glitter and girliness, might as well go with pearl paper. Now from that bag of acrylic shapes, there's this really nice rainbow. All the pieces are separate, and I'm just making sure they're all facing the correct way so that they nest together perfectly, and then figure out where my clouds are going to go. I didn't want it to be too even looking. I kind of wanted them offset a little bit and making sure they're covering up the bottom part of the rainbow. I also have my stamped unicorns on there, and now I'm just setting out the title. I used a couple of fonts from my computer to make the title, and I will list those down in the description box for you in case you're curious. I didn't know what color I wanted my title to be, so I decided I'll just cut it from white and then color it afterwards. Now I'm just going to start to adhere those clouds down because they're actually going to be layered under my photo mats, so they need to go down first. And I did decide to use some score tape because with the texture paste on there, I didn't think the ATG would hold it that well. So I just thought, be safe. Rather than sorry and have things peeling up later, I'll just use some score tape to hold it down. I don't know if you guys ever do this, but I have definitely done it plenty in the past where I'm just like, I think my tape runner should hold things just fine. And then they don't, and then I have to go back and trying to squirt some glue under there or whatever. A liquid adhesive would also have worked well for this because the pearl paper is pretty sturdy, and I think it could handle that liquid glue as well. But I had the score tape, and I love that stuff. It works really good. And I also decided I wanted to use that on the back of my photos because they are fully on the texture paste. And I thought if anything could hold it, score tape would be it. I have this roll of 1-inch tape. And so I went pretty heavy on the tape on this layout. So nothing should be budging at all. I did use my non-stick microtip scissors. These things are great for cutting adhesive and they don't get all gummed up. I'm going to do the exact same thing on the second photo and use the score tape to stick it down as well. And then I'm going to move on to getting my rainbow down into place. And I decided the best thing for that was probably glue dots. So we got lots of adhesive holding this page together. I'm using some glue dots, just pressing the arch of the rainbow. I put like one on each end and one in the middle to make sure that it was staying nice and flat on the page. I started with the largest one first and then just worked my way inwards so that I could get them nice and snug up together with no gaps. Now, as riveting as it is watching all these layers getting stuck down, I thought I would save you a little bit of time and just kind of skip the rest of me sticking that rainbow down. I'm doing the same process over and over. And then the 2 little clouds that are at the bottom to hide the ends of the rainbow, I did use some foam dots to stick those down. I also used foam dots to stick down the unicorns and add a little bit of dimension there. Now on the other page, I am pulling in my journaling. So I measured this out and made a text box on my computer and then just typed out all my journaling. I knew I had a really big story for this, so I wanted to type it instead of write it because it would be a whole page if I hand wrote it. And then I just trimmed the bottom into like a little flag shape. And then I'm going to stick that onto the page with some score tape as well because it is overlapping the texture paste. So for my journaling, I was basically just telling something that I had written down in my phone. We had been out splashing in puddles this day, and I had just kind of had this epiphany that this was the only time that we were going to be experiencing this. By next spring, Isabella will be used to puddles. She'll know what to expect. And basically, my whole little crisis around that and how I'm trying really hard to just appreciate all the little moments that make up our days and not just rush through everything, but just really savor all these little moments. Decided I wanted to add some stamping, so I'm using archival black ink and the little sentiment that says, "Be a unicorn in a field of horses." From that stamp set, I like to test out my images on a sticky note first and just make sure they're transferring properly. And then very carefully on that pearl paper, you stamp straight down and straight up, so hopefully you don't get a smudgy transfer. I decided to use this beautiful rainbow heart from those acrylic shapes as well. Each of those layers is individual, just like the rainbow that we have on the left. And I'm also adding my last unicorn, and it looked a little bit empty on the far right side, so I decided to put a few of the smaller solid hearts over on that side. Now I decided I needed one more area of embellishment, so I'm going to add another acrylic piece down by that photo, and then I grabbed the sticker sheet that matches the wet paint collection, and I'm using this border strip. And I thought if I'm going to add some on that photo, maybe I'll add some over on the right page too, just to help tie it all in together. So that's a great way to fill up my journaling strip there at the top. And then I just cut a piece that was longer than that acrylic strip of hearts, and I'm cutting both ends with a little flag. Now I only have 2 elements right now that I'm adding to this little embellishment cluster. I will end up coming back with a Play All Day sticker from the same sticker sheet because I wanted a third element. At this point, I decided I wanted a little bit more glitter on this page, so I used some silver glitter paper to just add over there on the right. And then over here, I'm using it to back my hearts. I thought that would really make them pop. I'm using glue dots to attach it to the acrylic piece, and that worked really well. And then I'm just going to layer it up with that sticker strip. Now the question in the back of my head while I've been working on this page was, what color am I going to make that title? I finally just decided. I had that green color spread out in my different clusters, so I thought, you know what, I'll start with that. I'll go with the green turquoise. I grabbed a piece of scrap paper and I tried out first the medium color, and it was just too light. So then I went back and used the darkest shade on that marker, and that was just about right. It matched pretty well. I just wanted something that was dark enough so it would show up well. This ended up being a great way for me to coordinate my title with the colors I had already used on the page. Since I wasn't really using any colored cardstock or anything, by using the markers that I had used on the unicorns, it kind of tied everything in together. Once I was done with the TriBlend marker, I also went back with a clear shimmer brush and covered the whole word with the shimmer brush and made them nice and sparkly. Next up for the word puddle, I'm going to do the same thing, but I thought I would switch colors. So I grabbed the citrus marker and I'm using the darkest end to just color it all into a nice bright yellow. I finished coloring that title off screen, and then I just stuck everything down with little dots of glue. And now I'm going back to my stamp set because right under that cloud, I just felt like it was too empty. It needed something a little bit heavier to fill in that area. So I thought if I stamped in black, that would work. So I stamped May All Your Dreams Come True, and I love how that worked out. Now I had a few different gems that I could choose from, but I ended up going with the silver glitter gems, one of my absolute favorites. I use these all the time. There's only 2 sizes. I would prefer that there was 3 sizes, but hey, you take what you can get. And then I'm just going around and trying to stagger them in little clusters. Underneath the cloud there, I kind of extended that downwards because I wanted it to almost look like little silver raindrops. And I love how that turned out. A little tip for whenever you're putting bling on your page, don't push them down right away because these are all self-adhesive. So I just gently lay them on there, and then once I'm sure that's where I want them, then I really give them good pressure and stick them down well. Otherwise, I find I end up sticking them places I don't really like them. Try and change it, and then you can't because you're ripping up the paper in the background. I'm adding some over on that right-hand page in between my little hearts and down by the unicorn there. And then I was kind of looking, maybe I should add some up at the top, but then that didn't really look right. So I end up putting a few more just over on that left-hand page beside the title. And I think I'm happy with that. That's where I am going to leave this layout. So I hope you guys really enjoyed watching this process. Make sure you check out the stamp sale that's going on this month. I'll leave links down below, as well as links for all the products that I used. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.